I'm Thomas Mai.
And I'm Zenzi Weber.
The Craving Creativity podcast is our cry for help. A way to help ourselves as creatives to talk about how we get inspired, how we create, but also how we deal with stress, mental illness, and everything in between.
Now, if you're creative, you, like us, have most likely always been seen as the black sheep of your family and always making different choices than what 90% of normal people might do. Not going for the safe choice, but always living a little on the edge.
With the Craving Creativity podcast, it is our hope to create a safe space where we can talk about being creative. We want to build a community of like-minded creatives and help each other. Subscribe, email us, and be part of the creative journey. Welcome to Craving Creativity. This is episode 14, and my name is Thomas Mai, together here with my co-host,
Zenzi Weber.
And this is the show or a podcast where we talk about everything in creative. And today's theme is Jack of all trades. Now, this is a theme you came up with. It's your idea.
Yes.
Zane.
I have often been called a jack of all trades.
Yes.
And I don't know whether that's true or not.
You don't know whether it's flattering or not?
I take it as a compliment.
Good. Yes.
Because the phrase that the title comes from is Jack of all trades, master of none, but better than being a master of one. So basically, you're good at it. You're decently good at a lot of things rather than just focusing down on being just one
Exactly.
thing. So I describe myself as a person who collects obsessions. So very, very early on, I was very obsessed with drawing. Then it went into science. Then it went into, science specifically, chemistry. Then it was history and language. So I tried to teach myself Latin and ancient Greek. I failed, but I have some of it still. Then it went into physics and kind of experimental physics and the state of science and et cetera, et cetera. And then it got into more creative things again as I went on. So through school, I went into art and drama, and then theater was a big one. Then podcasting was a big one, and kind of graphic design overarching through all of it. So I've been called a jack of all trades, or a modern Renaissance man, which is a term that I realized yesterday that you've never heard of.
No.
So Renaissance men are basically this archetype of a person who had a lot of fingers in a lot of different pies during the Renaissance, because this is when science and art were kind of blossoming, and you could be a painter and an engineer and a theologian
and a scientist
all at the same time. So I think I wanted to talk about the kind of either the benefits or the drawbacks of being a jack of all trades, who is kind of dipping their toes into a lot of different things, either consecutively or at the same time. And whether that helps your practice or doesn't.
Well, I think that being creative, you are naturally very curious. And I think that's what you've been doing, right? That's what you're trying to study all these different things. And I think that's a great thing if you are that as creative, because in order to survive in today's world, you need to understand a little bit of everything that's going on.
I think definitely, like, I was born at just the right time that as I was growing up, all this information became available to me.
Internet,
but also the availability of books and periodicals and magazines in my school library rather than like just the big main town library. I think with the birth of the internet, like, I could search up theoretical physics and find stuff that's way over my head, find stuff that's meant for me, and find stuff that was meant for children, and educate myself without needing a teacher. So I think that is something that people now kind of take for granted. Whereas, like, if you want to learn about the filmography of Kate Winslet. Let's just keep throwing Kate Winslet in there. You don't go to a book. You go to IMDb and you have a look through there, and then you go on a click rabbit hole down, and you see, and you end up at Tom Cruise somehow. So I think the internet definitely makes this sort of modality,
Yeah.
I get creative modality a lot more prevalent and a lot easier as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Because you can just YouTube. Like, I want to learn how to play guitar.
Exactly.
I want to learn how to sculpt.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just go to YouTube and
It's
follow it
phenomenal
for as long as-
resources. And one of our previous episodes, we talked about some of the biggest inventions of our time, and I mentioned the internet.
Yeah.
So yes,
absolutely.
It's not that I have anything credit to do with it. I just think it is an amazing share of knowledge. It's also can also be spread of lies, but that's a different story. But yeah, absolutely. I think that jack of all trades, as I said, I think that it's a skill set we need to have today, because if you are creative, you need to also understand, how can you fund this? Is it a hobby for you? Great. It's something you want to do full time, and you got to figure out how to make a little bit of money. And that requires a different set of thinking, a different way of outlooking on how can you find money to fuel your creative vision. Yeah. And absolutely. I think being a jack of all trades is a compliment. And that's why I was asking in the beginning, was it a compliment or not? Because I think it is a compliment. Someone who is a survivalist, somebody who can go in and approach different subjects and not be intimidated by it. Yeah. I mean, as a jack, like, I didn't set out to be that. No. And I still don't 100% believe that I am, because I'm not everywhere. I do have a sector of the pie chart of every subject in the world that I focus on now. But definitely more so when I was younger, it did seem to be a little bit frowned upon. Like, you'd be like, okay, if you want to do music, you need to focus on music and being the best musician you can. I was like, well, I have reached a level of musicianship that I am no longer curious about what is involved with music. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to learn how to improvise. I'm going to be an improviser. Or the theater. Absolutely. The theater space you're in as well. And I definitely think that early grounding of, like, going from one thing to another until I lacked curiosity about that anymore led to me kind of obsessing and learning everything I can about a subject, and then moving on. That has meant that I've sought out things that I'm interested in, learned what I could from them, and then apply that to everything that I go on afterwards. Definitely getting involved in the theater was a huge step in how I understand how people think and how people work together. And that has really been invaluable when I've got into podcasting, because like, here I am, I'm trying to translate other people's ideas into something in reality. But then also in podcasting, I draw on my graphic design and my marketing, because that's a necessary part of podcasting. You don't think about the visualness of podcasting, but it is definitely an aspect of it. And so all of that kind of culminates. I bring everything from behind me and apply it to whatever I move on to next. I don't know what my next obsession is going to be. Who knows? I can't predict it, because I couldn't have predicted podcasting, but here I am. What's so beautiful about us, what's so beautiful about life. We go through these different stages, right? I mean, when you're 6 years old, you have different dreams and visions than when you're 9 or 12 or 15 or 20. So we keep evolving, and that's what's so beautiful. And I think that when I say the survivalist or the jack of the all trades, I think that's a huge bonus in today's world, because we have to adapt. It's a constant and ever-changing world, and things go so fast all the time. And we have to be adaptable, I think. Yeah, I'm interested in asking you, have you ever had that experience of finding out something about a topic and then just like latching on? Oh, absolutely. Yeah? I love it. Yeah. Well, what was it for you? Because like, I've been through, like I said, dinosaurs, time travel, piano, musician, art, sculpture, graphic design. I go down a rabbit hole and I stay down the rabbit hole for a while, then I come back up and go down another rabbit hole. Oh, absolutely. So having lived and worked on 5 different continents. So different languages, different cultures, and different, just already there, you have to adapt to a new environment, right? And coming to Australia now, being here 10 years, it's you have to learn so many things, not just from how to get driver's license, how to pay taxes, and how to get those basic things, but also just how does the culture work and how do you do things. And I had to, in my endeavor and the way I make money, I had to reinvent constantly. I'm still reinventing how I make money because I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Right. So in the film world, I started out as a producer. Then I became a film sales agent.
Yeah.
Then I became a person who went out and spoke to a lot of film schools and a lot of places, and I taught my knowledge, and they paid me good money for that. I was traveling around the world, did 100 days a year. Then I came into start learning about VOD, which is, before streaming, video on demand. Now we got this thing called Amazon. People can click and they can watch something, and they can get a VHS tape sent to them.
Yeah.
Or a DVD disc, but it was burned on demand, so disc on demand.
Oh, okay.
So suddenly we had, when you're coming from Danish film world, there's a lot of Danish films that don't get out in the world. Suddenly we had all these films on Amazon in America. It was a huge thing. Then I had to move down here. I had to learn about crowdfunding, and I was one of the leading experts in crowdfunding for a while in the world. So it's just constantly, yes, it was within the film world, much of it, a lot of it, but it is different things and different avenues I have to go down. Now, right now I'm in marketing, and right now I'm starting a side business on something to bring in some extra, hopefully some passive income, which has a lot of creativity to it. But I'm constantly learning new skill sets.
Yeah.
I'm constantly adapting, and I'm, thank God, by nature, very curious. And I don't want to be, it's not I don't want to be left behind. I'm just so curious. I can't wait to find out what's going on.
Are you ever jealous of the masters? Of the people who are like so on top of their subject of choice that like they just know, they know everything. But also if you're talking about creative masters, they are, I find that they're just beyond my understanding. Like I can understand creativity, but a master will functions on like on a different level that I can actually comprehend of how they create.
Okay, I don't want to sit here. I'm certainly not a master or producer because I made 8 and some of them did okay, won a lot of awards and all that stuff. Other ones did not do well. Sales agent, I was pretty good, selling some big directors and stuff like that. But in terms of crowdfunding, I became one of the experts in the world on it. And for a while, I was one of the masters. And I don't. But the problem was the industry I was in was the film industry. And it was crowdfunding film industry with people who have no money. So I didn't. I'm not saying this, but at one point you can rest on your laurels, but you also got to keep reinventing yourself. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I could have got deeper down into it. I could have stayed in Copenhagen and done the film sales agency.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have this itch to keep going and keep trying, and I think it's driving my wife nuts a little bit. I've only managed to live with her on 4. No, she's lived with me 4 different continents as well.
Okay,
But she says no more moving. We're staying here, and it's just I just want to keep reinventing. I want to keep learning. I think that it's just a natural appetite to learn new things. What about you? Do you?
Yeah, I am jealous, but I'm only jealous because they know something I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like, as particularly the masters that I'm talking about, they're theatre masters.
Yeah.
People who are like Sondheim is one of them.
Yeah.
Like he can explain how he composed this bit, referencing melodies and sub melodies and harmonies from several different places in the thing, and how he put it all together. But I'm like, how did you sat at a piano and it just came out?
Yeah.
You didn't sit down and go like, okay, this song is this and this song is this, and if I change it here, it works. It just came out. Yeah. And there's so many stories of people like Sondheim or other people like that who are like, the show needs something. Yeah. And they write something and it works. And it's the song of the show. Okay. And the only regret I have of not being a master, honestly, I don't have the brain capacity to focus on just being a master because I want to be everywhere at once. The one regret I have is that like I cannot sate my curiosity of how they think and how they do that because I'm not there. Well,
I think it's about intuition, and I think it's the 10,000 hours principle where the more time you spend on something, the better attuned you are to what's going on. And again, I think it's about understanding the finesses of everything, and you're so aligned with that particular subject that you can answer anything, you can do anything, you can think ahead of what's going on, you can predict things to come because you feel the whole movement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we spoke about this when we were like talking about taking a break, letting your subconscious do the work for you. And
exactly.
Like, that's obviously what they're tapping into.
Yes, it is.
But then they immediately understand what they did.
Yeah.
Whereas when I do that, I'm like, oh, that works.
Yeah.
And not think about it anymore.
and the only thing I claim with Master is that at one point I was one of the premier experts in crowdfunding in the world. And I could answer, I had a lot of people coming to me and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to be and toot my own horn or anything like that. But when you are suddenly faced with questions or with, and you can feel like you're playing a different field. I mean, it's just, and I'm not trying to be superior here or arrogant or anything.
No, but that's what I'm talking about when you're a master is like, you're not asking the questions anymore. You're being asked the questions.
Yes, exactly. And but you can answer and you can tap into something. I don't know but you tap in something that's bigger than yourself. Right, whether that's the moose or whether that's the whatever, it's divine inspiration or whatever it is, but you just have answers you didn't have before they were asked, but you pull out an answer that just and again, I'm not trying to be superior because I'm no longer that. I was that for a period of time. And but it's just there's something where you can just tap into something that's bigger than yourself and you can funnel that through you. And I think that's what they're doing. I don't know. Yeah,
look, and then like that's like obviously I respect their work and like obviously what they do is creative and it's the peak of their field. But yeah, the only reason I'm jealous of them is like I wish I had that mechanism in my own brain. And I know that that's just something that I need to spend 10,000 hours doing. I'm like, oh, who has 10,000 hours?
I've met a lot of masters in the film industry, a lot of A-list, I mean, big stars, both in acting and directing, producing and stuff like that. And the problem is when you meet some of your stars, you don't really like them. You like what they've done. You like their output and you respect their influence and certainly the amount of money they've accumulated. But some of them are not very nice people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like there are a lot of people that I love what they've done. I love their careers. I love their work. But I know if we were in a room together having dinner, we would not get along.
No.
And like, I don't want to call out Patti LuPone. Like, I'm sure she's a lovely person, but like, I just don't think we would mesh together as a personalities.
I've been fortunate to meet a lot of them, and I many of them I wouldn't want to hang out with for 1 second. So, but I want to go see their works. So so yes, that's why you asked me before if I was jealous of them. In a way, yes. In a way, no.
That's fair.
How do you stay curious? How do we, as we grow older and wiser, how do we always stay curious? How do you?
I think I've had it easy because I've always been rewarded for being curious.
Yeah.
Like I've always enjoyed where my curiosity has led. So I've never been curious about welding, gone to weld and been either bored or I hurt myself or like I destroyed a machine or whatever. Whenever I've been curious and I followed that curiosity, I've been able to achieve a level of competency that I'm like, okay, this is cool. I enjoy doing this. And then when it disappears, I'm like, okay, I let it go. And I move on to wherever my curiosity leads next. Usually while I'm doing one thing, my curiosity will lead somewhere else and I'll do both for a time and then I'll just move on naturally. But yeah, I think it's just rewarding yourself and not judging yourself if you're not good at it. Yeah. Because like I'm not good at piano, but I enjoyed trying to learn it. And then when I was like, this isn't happening quickly enough for it to be worth it for me anymore.
For the effort, okay, I see what you're saying.
I was like, look, I can bang out a tune and like that's what I use it for now. Yeah. But other than that, like I think I can move on to other, like singing is much more rewarding for me.
For me, it was, this is when I was a kid, growing up before the internet, we had a newspaper delivered daily at our house. And my dad would read it, but I would also read it. I would read every article in that newspaper every single day. And I was 8, 9, 10 years old when I started doing that. And I've always had this lust for information. Yeah. And I devour so much information every day on the internet. It's mindless. It just comes in and some of it stays and other stuff just leave. But every day I want to know what's going on in the world.
And that's honestly like that's the downside of the wonders of the internet is numbness. Yeah. Is just numbness to input.
Exactly. But now we're doing this podcast. I've never done a
Absolutely.
podcast before. We're learning, redoing things. Who knows how long we're going to do this podcast for? But right now I'm enjoying it, and it's a fun process so far. And we seem to be able to come up with themes we can talk about all the time. So as long as we can do that and we're having fun.
The reason I ended up in podcasting is podcasting can be a platform for so many other interests.
Yes.
So I do a podcast on musical theater.
Yeah.
I do a podcast on horror movies. I do a podcast on podcasts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like podcasting is not necessary. The actual methodology of podcasting is something that I was interested in, and now I consider myself a very competent person at it.
Yeah.
But podcasting is a launching pad for so many other obsessions.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that's why podcasting, like theater, is here to stay, because it is so variable. You can find so much so much inspiration and curiosity within that. Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts and just proud and happy to be part of something hopefully people will listen to.
So I'm interested in your top 3, because here we were like top 3 jacks of all trades.
Okay. So I'm going to mention someone first. I know you have the same person on the list, okay?
I'm sure we do.
So someone who was an inventor, someone who was an engineer, someone who was a scientist, someone who was an architect, somebody who was into astronomy, who was something into anatomy, into botany, cartography, and of course painting and sculptures.
The original Renaissance man.
Yes.
Da Vinci.
Yes. So we both have him, of course. So how can we not? I mean, it's just amazing what he did. I mean, he was just
so much so that there's now mythology around Da Vinci.
Really?
Yeah. Well, like with the Da Vinci Code.
And
that sort of thing.
Book. Yeah.
But also like his hidden journals and his hidden life, which was like, because Italy just didn't recognize homosexual relationships because they were having, because they were openly homosexual, but it just wasn't recognized. Like the mythology around Da Vinci and his works now is very interesting
he would write codes in backwards and couldn't read through a mirror. And all these things he would do. He was just you can't get he's the ultimate jack of all trades, isn't he?
It's and I think that is Da Vinci was like the coalescence of a person who had an incredibly plastic brain and high intelligence, just in the right place to just absorb everything and just make a synergy where he puts the engineering together, and he puts the anatomy into his sculpture, and he puts the sculpture into his art, and the sculpture into architecture, and the coalescence of the right place, right time with the right capacity is I think Da Vinci.
You said plastic brain. What does that mean?
Able to change and absorb new things, think new ways. Usually, as you grow older, your brain gets less plastic, like there's less new
so it's
neurons
the plasticity, not the plastic.
Yes, plasticity.
Got it. Yeah, just making sure.
But
just learning English here 101. Thank you very much.
Da Vinci, is one of the people that I would love to have met.
Yeah.
Just to see what he is like, because there's
his workshop. I mean, just go into the workshop and see what he was working on.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Fascinating. He seemed like he never stopped working. It's fascinating. All right. So we both have him. So what do you have besides that?
So my next one is probably not on your list, because I only know of him through, both through theater, but then also through my interest in like civil rights and that sort of thing in America.
Yeah.
So his name's Paul Robeson.
Okay.
So he's famous for his role in Showboat, both on stage and in the movie.
Yeah.
So he's a bass baritone singer.
Yeah.
He released like 267 songs, very famous that. But before that, he was a professional athlete. So he's in the Football Hall of Fame in America. He's a writer and a political activist. He can speak 7 different languages, and so was a multilingual orator. So we'd go around giving speeches in 7 different languages. He was also a lawyer, and again, big involved in the civil rights movement, specifically to get the 3/5 Amendment abolished, so that African American people were considered the same as real people, the same as white people. So that was kind of where he came from, the 1920s through to 1950s. Okay. Paul Robeson, like athlete. I could never be an athlete, but that end. So he was an artist, an actor, a singer, a musician. He knew 7 languages. He was a practicing lawyer and also a philosophical scholar and a professor. So it was just in everything. He was, and especially for an African American man at the time. Again, right place, right time.
Wow.
Yeah,
I would love to find out more about him.
Yeah, absolutely. I will.
Again, in the show notes, we're going to put all the links to all these people we're talking about.
Yeah, the next one that's on my list, you will know. So I won't have to orate so long.
Well, let's turn this around. If I tell you the next person, I'm going to give you some clues. If you can guess this, I'll be very impressed. Okay.
All right.
So the next person has been nominated for 10 Oscars.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one clue. He's won one. That's okay. But he's also a race car driver. He won the IndyCar series several times. He won the American Sports Car Club series many times. And here comes the kicker. And and then he also set up some summer camps for ill children. So he raised a lot of money. And then here comes the kicker. He had his own dressing that was sold in supermarkets. That is still sold in supermarkets. I don't know if it's in Australia, but they're certainly around America. So
I'm aware of this person, but I do not know his name. I cannot think of his name. Okay. Is it him, right?
Him? Who? Yeah, it's him.
Yeah,
it's him.
No. Tell me his name.
Paul Newman.
Paul, yeah. As soon as you said the dressing, I was like, okay.
The dressing is the kicker. Exactly. The 10 Oscars, no, that's all right. Nominations, the race car up, the dressing, yes.
Well, nominated for 10-1-1. The only other person that's done that is DiCaprio, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he's nominated 10 times. Probably.
I think maybe he's only been nominated 8.
Yeah. Well, Tony was nominated 10 times, and he won for The Color of Money. But anyway, but he was a jack of all trades. Yeah. I mean, of course, he was actor, but he was in love with cars, and he had his own team, and he would go race for real against other
and won.
IndyCar series and this other series called the American Sports Car Club series, which I don't know much about. I'll link all this stuff in the show notes, of course. But then he made his dressing. He started making it for his friends and family, and they loved it so much. And he tried to put it on bottles, and they sold it in supermarkets, and they made $300,000 profit the first year. And that's when they realized, I don't need the money. I'm going to give this all away.
Yeah.
So they went to charities, and they started something called the Serious Fun Network, which is summer camps for ill children around the world. So he did a lot of stuff, and I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. On a similar note, obviously not in as many different sectors of the world, but I almost put Ashton Kutcher on my list because
he's an investor.
He's an investor, but he also started a foundation to stop sex trafficking. So he and his wife or ex-wife Demi Moore basically started this this organization to fight sex trafficking. And I think that is the kind of modern Renaissance kind of person, is the person who strikes it big, earns a name, and then goes on to do better things using that name. Emma Watson is another one that I think will go on to do things like that in the future. Justin Timberlake, again, an investor as well as an actor and musician. Yeah. I didn't put a lot of just creative people, because I think a lot of creative, Donald Glover is a hip hop artist, a comedian, an actor, a dancer. He does a lot of things. They're all kind of creative though. And I think that kind of feeds into each other. The person on my list is Isaac Asimov. Yeah. So famous for writing.
Yeah. Foundation, right?
Foundation.
And it's coming out on Apple TV.
Yeah, absolutely. He's making a TV show of it.
I am so forward to see it. Yeah.
He wrote, and let me see if I can get he wrote something like 9,000 essays over the time. 9,000. He has been accused of being afflicted with graphomania, which is a compulsion to write.
What's it called?
Graphomania.
Okay.
So iRobot, Foundation trilogy. But what I want to talk to you about is his writings, his books, his nonfiction stuff appears in 9 out of the 10 categories of the Dewey Decimal System. So he was a master across almost every section of scholarly pursuit. And his passion was to turn scientific finding into layperson speak and explaining scientific concepts and things.
So he was a scientist as well?
He was a professor and a researcher. Yeah.
I did not know that.
So his hook for science fiction is he writes hard science fiction. Yeah. So science fiction that has a strong basis in reality. Yeah. Or in the concepts known to science at the time.
Yeah. it's an oxymoron, science fiction and reality, but yes.
Yeah.
I did not know he was a professor.
Absolutely. So all of his essays and things, his collected works, he is literally in everything. I'll tell you the 10 Dewey Decimal categorizations.
What do you say Dewey Decimal? What is that?
So Dewey Decimal is a classification system in libraries that kind of splits libraries into different sections of study. So things like, where are we? We have general works, philosophy and psychology, religion, social science, language, natural sciences and mathematics, technology, the arts, literature and rhetoric, and history, biography and geography. So of those 10, he appears in 9 of them.
Wow.
I couldn't find out which one he doesn't appear in. I can't imagine it being the arts. But maybe social sciences he doesn't.
Maybe. Let's see if I can look it up in the show notes when I add the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay?
So this is, again, I almost didn't put him on just because it is kind of one sector of kind of knowledge and activity, but just that he was so prolific in so many different areas of study and science and speculation. I think that he has earned him his here. And he, of course, is the progenitor of the 3 rules of robot. The like do no harm.
Yeah. Okay, so he came out with that. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Huh. Interesting. I'm familiar with his work. Or am I?
You will definitely have heard.
No, I've never heard of him so many times, and I've heard about the foundation so many times, and I've read so much, but I've never got started in the foundation. But
a lot of his stuff has been converted into movies, like iRobot.
Yeah.
But again, the modern interpretations of the text are not really. Not really.
I'm looking forward to the foundation. Let's see if how they're going to pull that off. Yeah. The last one I want to talk about, who is a jack of all trades. He's not as many trades as the other ones, but he broke something, stigmas and how you're supposed to do it. And I've talked about him before, and it's Charlie Chaplin.
Absolutely. This is a great one. Yeah.
Of course, he is an actor. He's a producer. He is a director. He's a composer. So he created a lot of music at the time.
Smile is one of my favorite songs.
Amazing song. But what he also did was he broke up with the Hollywood fixed contract system, and he created United Artists, which was an independent studio where you would have complete control. Because up until then, you had a contract for 5 films or 6 films, and you could only work on those. You couldn't work anywhere else, and they owned you. And it was a feudalian. What do you have?
A feudal
system. Yes,
a problematically feudal system.
Yes, there were you inherited, and you got traded across, and it was just terrible at the time. And he broke that up on that monopoly and that control that studios had over directors and actors, and paved the more way for the more modern way. And he had a huge fight in his hand. And then, of course, he had some left-leaning political opinions. Yeah. And so much so that the McCarthyisms got to him. And
that was Paul Robeson as well.
Yes. And because he thought kindly of his fellow man, he left America and never to return again. And
And that is, I think Chaplin is definitely in the same arena as Da Vinci and Isaac Asimov of not necessarily someone who has a career, but someone who is a thinker and just achieves in the place where they want to.
Exactly.
Because Chaplin definitely saw what was happening and how to change it and had strong opinions.
He fought against a system that was very rigid and very controlling, and he came up with United Artists. And for that, besides his body of work and what he's delivered to us, for that, he's just has my deepest respect. So
absolutely. Well, that's a great list.
Thank you very much. And likewise, like you, Da Vinci.
So if you want to let us know if we've missed anyone out, or if you are a Jack or Jill of all trades, send us an email and let us know what you're working on, what your current obsession is. That would be awesome. Give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or on whatever podcatcher you're listening to us on. Can't do it on Spotify, but share it with your creative friends. And if you have someone who's very proud of being a jack of all trades, share it with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Until next time, I've been Zane C. Weber.
And this is Thomas May.
Keep creating things.
Peace.